But why don't we see where this race for president is framed up as Donald Trump goes into the RNC this week? New polling shows that Joe Biden continues to have a wide lead over President Trump nationally. Biden holds a 10-point lead over Trump, 52 to 42% in the latest CBS YouGov poll. Now, that was, for the most part, unchanged since before the election or before the Democratic convention. But you did see some tightening around Joe Biden. The support seemed to be much stronger for Biden. There are also other polls on the heels of the DNC regarding favorability numbers. In the latest ABC News Ipsos poll, President Trump's favorability sits at 32%. 62% have an unfavorable impression of the president. Joe Biden's favorability is up 5 points from the previous week, now at 45%, and 40% unfavorable. We're going to get to some battleground polling in just a minute, but Casey Hunt, that really tells quite a difference between 2016 and 2020, where you had Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, both fairly unpopular, sitting in the low to mid 30s. Here you have Joe Biden about a dozen points higher on a favorability rating. And you talk to people inside the campaigns, they tell you that the biggest difference, and this is how negative politics has gotten, but the biggest difference between this year and 4 years ago is when you poll the people who don't like either candidate. 4 years ago, it broke disproportionately towards Donald Trump. This year, those people, and it's a good number, are breaking disproportionately towards Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's right. And this is something Democrats don't necessarily like to talk about because it reminds them of Hillary Clinton's loss. And that was really a low point for so many people in the party, many of whom are now working for Joe Biden. But that's really the big difference here. Joe Biden went into this race with a different perception from voters across the country. And there are, a lot of reasons for that, some of which have to do with Hillary Clinton, but many of which have to do with the attributes that Joe Biden brings, the person he has been in our public life for the last 50 years, the tragedies that he has endured in his private life that many people in the public life have shared with him. But I think you referenced that number in this new CBS YouGov poll that shows that essentially the number of people who said, I'm supporting Joe Biden because he's not Donald Trump, dropped a little bit. And the number of people who said, I'm supporting Joe Biden because I like Joe Biden, ticked upward in a pretty significant way, which seems to show, and we'll see if it holds over the course of the next couple of months heading into the election, but it seems to show that they succeeded with what they set out to do with their convention, which was to make a positive argument to say, hey, you should get out and support this guy because of who he is, not only because you want to oppose the sitting president. We know Democrats are motivated to do that. But for anyone that is still sitting on the fence, making that positive argument in favor of Joe Biden could potentially make a critical difference. And this has also been where the Trump campaign has failed. They have tried to get something to stick to him, a negative attack. They've gone after his son. They've tried other tactics. They've tried to tie him to China. So far, nothing is really working. And if that state continues through, I think that is potentially going to be the difference here. Now, one thing we are seeing, Joe, we played a little bit of that David Muir interview, the ABC News interview at the top of the show. Biden, former Vice President Joe Biden, said that he would lock down the country again if that's what public health officials are saying. And that is something I'm told we should watch for this week at the Republican National Convention. Republicans are seizing that, holding on to it, and thinking that may be an argument that could win for them. Now, of course, that's making a bet that Americans, want the economy to open potentially over the objection of public health officials. I guess we're going to have to be the judge of whether that's the wise thing, but that is something to look out for.
All right. And some new battleground state polling has come out showing Joe Biden holding at least a 7-point lead over Donald Trump in every battleground state he's ahead. The polling firm Redfield and Wilton, a British firm, shows that in Michigan, Biden holds a 12-point lead, 50 to 38%. In Wisconsin, a 10-point lead, 49 to 39%. In Arizona, a 9-point lead, 47% to 38%. In Florida, an 8-point lead, 49% to 41%. In Pennsylvania, a 7-point lead, 48 to 41%. And in North Carolina, the president is statistically tied with Joe Biden, but up 2 points and up 4 points since July. Reverend Al, obviously we're expecting these swing states to be awfully tight. That showed Joe Biden up fairly comfortably in most swing states, but I would guess you'd expect most of those states to go down to the wire this November.
There's no doubt that the race will tighten for several reasons and probably go back and forth several times. I think that the campaigns of both candidates must really watch where the concerns of people are. Where are we in the pandemic? Where are we in terms of some of the social questions like policing and like gun control? And I think the ones that read it and handle it correctly will be the ones that will drive their turnout and will have their hand on the pulse of where the country is. When we are entering this RNC starting tonight, it appears that the president is tone deaf because he's playing to an audience that's not there, suburban housewives that are moving toward the urban center. He's playing to having people that waved guns, a couple that waved guns at Black Lives Matter marches who were marching peacefully, being speakers, contrasting that with a Colin Powell or Governor Kasich, Republicans that spoke at the Democratic convention. I think his tone deaf is frightening for the Republicans, and if he doesn't catch up, I think even though the race may tighten, it gives the edge to the Democrats.
You know, it is really surprising. The tone that he's taking this convention is the same tone that he's been taking over the past 40 years. He's playing to his base, his most boiled down version of his base, the base that he spoke to at the inauguration when he was talking about American carnage, the base he spoke to in Charlottesville when he was trying to split the difference, despite what his sad and pathetic apologists say about what he said at Charlottesville. David Duke was praising it and said, this is why we voted for Donald Trump. This is why we're going to support Donald Trump after Charlottesville. And you could carry that all the way through to this convention. You just look at the numbers, and again, it's baffling, not only to me, but I know it's baffling to a lot of sitting Republican members of the House and the Senate who don't understand why this president continues to do what he does. And
thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.